Oscars. We're going live for our final Oscar predictions, and I've got Lee Pugsley here from the Dark Room podcast. Alex is in Sundance getting snowed on, so
Jealous.
did a lot of stuff with Alex, and now he's freezing his ass off in Sundance, trying to figure out whether or not that was worth it. I hear they're getting a lot of snow, so I don't know. I guess it depends on whether or not he sees any good films, which, because if you get snowed on and everything you saw sucks, I would imagine that's a terrible experience. But we'll find out later. But we're going to do final Oscar predictions, and make sure you subscribe to the Dark Room podcast. Got to make sure that happens. And so you can listen to Lee and Alex. They've been really great about being here throughout the whole time. There aren't that many blind film critics, and I'm trying to unite us into like a forward. I found one. There's a guy that's out there, and he hasn't reviewed a film since Don't Breathe. And I was, yeah. There's if you search for blind, I think his thing is the blind film critic, like his actual channel. He hasn't reviewed a film since Don't Breathe. I'm like, well, he might be dead. So he definitely stopped reviewing because that was a long time ago. I don't know so I was hoping to join forces with more, but there are 3 blind film critics right now that we know of, and hopefully we can grow that number. And who knows next year what impact we'll have on the Oscars predictions. But we're going to start right now with the category that makes absolute sense for us to predict, and that's visual effects. Yes.
Let's go.
That is what everybody tuned in to hear. They want to know what 2 blind film critics think about visual effects.
The most pertinent category to all of us, right? To all of us blind film critics.
I have thoughts on this. Being somebody who has seen before and who knows sort of what's up, I do have the thoughts on visual effects, but I will let Lee lead off here. Lee, what are your predictions for best visual effects?
Okay, so my predictions for best visual effects are Guardians of the Galaxy 3, The Creator, which in my opinion is probably the only lock that I see, Society of the Snow, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and then for the last one, I'm going to throw in Napoleon. So I do think that Godzilla -1 could sneak in there, though. So I'm not ruling that out. But those are my 5 right now.
Yeah. So I'm kind of in a different place. We agree on some things. I'm actually a little worried about Guardians for a weird reason. This category doesn't traditionally like Marvel or superhero films. Not a huge fan. It's not that they've never recognized it, but they have snubbed superhero movies before. And with Guardians not getting that crucial makeup shortlist, I could see Guardians being snubbed and not getting any Oscar nominations. I know that sounds incredibly weird, but Marvel treats their VFX teams like ass and rushes them on deadlines. And I don't know that, I think these are VFX people voting for VFX. So I'm leaving it in for now, hoping that, because some of these nominations are awful. Like if we pick Rebel Moon over Guardians, I'm gonna be so upset. But so I do have Guardians and I do have The Creator. I feel like The Creator is gonna get in. And I actually am going with Across the Spider-Verse. I know that it's sort of a blend of many different things, and there is that live action sequence with Spot that's in there for like 2 seconds. So definitely has at least as much visual effects as Society of the Snow does to be here. I mean, Society of the Snow is really just here because of a plane crash. So I am keeping Across the Spider-Verse. I'm going with Indiana Jones, that de-aging. People made fun of it, but I kind of wonder whether or not it's a lot. That segment is really long. It's a really long segment. That's a lot of work for visual effects people who are just there to recognize visual effects. That's all they're there to do is pat each other on the back. They're not there to have like a referendum on how good the film is. And I think they might recognize the Indiana Jones team for the de-aging. And my last one is Godzilla -1 because I don't think the people who have been doing Godzilla for Japan have never come this close to a visual effects nomination. And if we respect them at all, uh, I feel like there are people who grew up on Godzilla who are now doing visual effects, and this is their one opportunity to reward, um, you know, OG Godzilla and not the remake crap we keep doing over here. So this is that's those are my five, and that's my reasoning for it. So
You bring up a lot of really good reasonings, and after your take on things, I'm actually removing Mission Impossible, and I am replacing it with Indiana Jones because that was
yeah,
I was bouncing back and forth on that, but I totally forgot about obviously the the de aging thing, and that I think will go a long way. So
and the thing
yeah,
about Mission Impossible is the franchise has never been nominated
also a very valid point. So I
ever.
totally take that one back.
And
Um,
some people are being really bold and putting it in here. And yes, it got a BAFTA. It did. But BAFTAs are not Oscars. And at the Oscars, Mission Impossible's never been nominated. Um, so anyway. All right. So are we ready? Do you want to move on?
Yeah, one last thing I want to comment on really
Okay.
quickly with Guardians is I think Guardians is potentially the most vulnerable of not getting in of the ones we've talked about. Well, I mean we're just removing Mission Impossible now, but because Marvel hasn't done great this past year. I think that there are other movies that might have more to respect about their visual effects. Not to say that Guardians doesn't have that, but but then at the same time, people did agree that in the dead Marvel year, that Guardians was like kind of like the bright light. So, but I do think it's the most vulnerable out of these for sure.
Yeah. Cool. Um, I've known people who worked for Marvel before, and those deadlines, they're always really proud of the work, but I feel like they have to go through a lot to get to there. So it feels like they're wearing like a badge of honor, almost having worked for Marvel on VFX. So international feature, the artist formerly known as foreign language film category. I'll kick it off this time. We'll
Yeah,
bounce back
sounds
and
good.
forth. You don't have to. You don't have to always stick your neck out on every single category. Um, yeah. So I've decided on Zone of Interest from the UK. I think a lot of people forget that it's from the UK and not from Germany. It's Jonathan Glazer's British. It's actually a UK entry for those who aren't paying attention. Welcome. The Society of the Snow from Spain by J.A. Bayona. Fallen Leaves, which is Finland, which surprised everyone with that Best Actress nomination for Golden Globes. I think that turned a lot of eyes to Fallen Leaves, enough for it to get in. I think a lot of people who maybe weren't like, were like, what? And I'm going with 20 Days of Mariupol because I don't think there's any way that Ukrainian movie doesn't get nominated. And my last one is Teacher's Lounge from Germany. There are like a handful. That fifth place spot I feel like is definitely open. But I'm not picking Taste of Things because I think people resent France for not trying Anatomy of a Fall. Like for trying to get like double nominate, like trying to be like, Anatomy of a Fall seems to be doing fine on its own. I wonder if we could submit another film and like letting Anatomy of a Fall run its own campaign. I just don't think Taste of Things is going to get in. But Totem is valid. Perfect Days hasn't really been getting a lot. I know a lot of people think that's going to happen. I don't. Anyway, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on International?
So we are exactly in alignment on this one. The five movies you just mentioned Zone of Interest, Society of the Snow, Fallen Leaves, 20 Days in Maripol, and Teacher's Lounge. Those are my five as well. I do think that, like you said, the ones that could possibly surprise, I'm not expecting them to, would be Taste of Things, Perfect Days, and possibly Four Daughters. But
Yeah,
that would be on the lower. Four Daughters would be on the very lowest of the list of what could get in. But yeah,
I
we're
think
very much in
Totem still
alignment.
has a chance too. From Mexico, Totem.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, you're right. Totem too.
yeah, but I don't see El Capitano happening. I think that was a fluke at the Globes. It hasn't really picked up any sort of buzz since then. But yeah, so I feel good. We have the same five. Cool. Um, so what is next?
We could do
I think it's documentary.
documentary, yeah.
All right. So who do you have for documentary? Since it's your turn to go first.
Yeah, hang tight for a moment. Also, for those of you that are watching, because you're talking to two blind movie critics, and we are looking through our list and using voiceover, sometimes you have to scroll up and down. So, we'll just call it for what it is.
Yes. Yes, we are using our assistive technology, and you may hear voices mumbling in the background. I've got mine down really low, but are you good on? Did you find your documentary list yet?
Yeah. So,
Okay.
what I have right now is I have American Symphony, um, Beyond Utopia, 20 Days in Mariupol, 32 Sounds, and as of right now, I don't feel good about it. I do have still a Michael J. Fox movie in there, but I also think that if something were to throw that out, because I think that would be the most vulnerable, it would be Eternal Memory.
Okay. Interesting. We're veering into different paths here. I have your first three, but not your last two.
Okay.
So I have American Symphony. I have 20 Days in Mariupol, and I have what the hell is the other one?
Um, oh, what was it? 20 Days in Mariupol, American Symphony,
Beyond Utopia.
Beyond Utopia. Yeah.
Yeah, people escaping North Korea. I'm sure the Oscars ate that shit up. Yeah, that's got to be on there. But for the last two, I picked Going to Mars and Nika Giovanni Project, and I picked Bobby Wine, the People's President, as my last two spots. I think they're gonna snub Still. They usually don't go for the most popular documentary on the block. It's not really their thing. You can ask, "Won't you be my neighbor?"
Yep.
That David Bowie documentary from last year. I forgot the name of it. The Moonshine.
Moonshine. Yeah,
Moon,
whatever.
Moon Age Daydream.
Moon Age Daydream. Yeah.
Moonshine Daydream. Anyway, yeah, they seem to not want to. They didn't even put Good Night Oppie on the short list last year, so they like theirs sort of in like a certain fashion, and I feel like these are going to get there. If I had to pick anyone to kind of like come out of nowhere and surprise, I feel like Stamped from the Beginning is also really up their alley as a documentary. But I haven't seen the ones that you mentioned, so I'm curious, and those could be really interesting predictions. So
I do want to, okay, and once again, because, this is why it's good to have these conversations. Like, I totally forgot about the Bobby Wine. That's what it's called, right? The people's president.
Yeah, Bobby. It's he has an accent, so I don't know how he pronounces his name. He's Ugandan. Bobby Wine. I don't know. I don't want to. I guess it's Bobby Wine if we Americanize his name.
Okay, so
But
you convinced me once again because I didn't feel great about Still. It was just like, I don't know, like based on other things I was seeing having watched that movie, but I do think I'm going to replace the Bobby Wine. I'm going to replace the Michael J. Fox documentary Still with Bobby Wine, the people's president. So, Michael J. Fox, unfortunately, you're out. And for the reasons you mentioned that the Academy, with other trends doesn't go for
yeah, they
the
just don't.
mainstream stuff for the documentary branch.
They
It like
should.
never happens.
I would absolutely love for Still to get the nomination. It was a beautiful and brilliant documentary. I love how they use clips from Michael J. Fox's films and line them up with things he's talking about from his life, and it's not just like a look back at scenes from films. They actually sort of like intertwined it with his narrative. I thought it was a brilliant way to do that film, and it's Parkinson's. I mean, there's so many reasons to nominate that film, but I think they just see it as a Michael J. Fox movie, and I'm hoping I'm wrong. That would be the film. If I miss one and it's for Still, I'm okay. Yeah, I would be fine with that. So anyway, I think animated features next, and that means I'm first because we're alternating. So
Alternating, yep.
so you can look up your animated feature list while I give my five. I felt like this was actually a pretty easy category because there really are like three that you can kind of like lock in and just close the door and set sail into the universe. But obviously, they're going to nominate Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. That would be insane if they didn't. The Boy and the Heron definitely getting a nomination here, and I think they're still getting Elemental. I know everybody was surprised by that Annie snub because the Annies this year didn't pick any Disney movie. They snubbed both Elemental and Wish, but I still think there are people who are wowed by the Pixar factor. I still think Elemental gets the nomination. The two that I'm less certain about are Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem and Suzume. I think Suzume might be pushing it to having because it's like Miyazaki as anime. Are they going to nominate two animes? Anime is growing in popularity. The fact that Crunchyroll is releasing their stuff straight to theaters is great. I'm not feeling great about Nimona getting a nomination. I just and I'm not feeling great about Chicken Run. Netflix has a couple movies that are all eligible, and I feel like this is what happens when you kind of throw multiple things at the wall. Sometimes the darts miss the board entirely, and you land around the dartboard instead of actually in the dartboard. So I thought Nimona was great. I don't know that they're going to pick it. But what do you think?
So I'm in alignment with your top or with your four, Boy and the Heron, Across the Spider Verse, Elemental, and you said that Mutant Mayhem, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem was on your list, right? Or your predictions?
Yeah, I just don't feel like it's a lock. I feel a little bit less, you know, yeah, yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if I got that one wrong. The first three would surprise me. The second two would not. Is what I'm saying. That's where I'm drawing the dividing line.
Right,
So
right. Okay, so then this is where we're gonna divide. I will go with Nimona over Suzume. Once again, to be clear, I don't feel great about it. I'm just going off of different articles that I've read and conversations that I've heard, but I really could see it going either way with with the last two spots, like you said. I'm not confident in It could be, Nimona, it could be Suzume, it could be Ninja Turtles, it could be, just because people seem to like Aardman Entertainment, for, good reasons mostly. Most of the time, like they have quality movies. Like they could just throw in Chicken Run because it's Aardman. Like there's so many ways that they could go with this that, yeah, the last two I don't feel confident on, but I will predict Nimona as my fifth spot.
Yeah, I would love to see Nimona get it. It's one of my favorite animated films of the year, absolutely. And it's kind of a nice little middle finger to Disney if
Yeah,
it gets it, especially if it gets it over like Wish. It's because Disney set it free and rejected it when they shuttered Blue Sky Studios and then Netflix picked it up. So if they got an Oscar nomination, especially if over you know, Disney, yeah, that would be fun. But anyway, we're pretty close. So what's up next? What's next for you? Let's see.
let me check really quick. Hang tight.
Is it sound? Are we at sound?
Are you good with score?
Yeah, we can do score.
Okay, one moment. Okay, so I have um, Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Across the Spider Verse, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest.
Okay, that's a really conservative five. I
I
almost
do
agree with it.
I
Yeah.
do think that other possibilities though that could get in are the score for, and I'm just saying the names because it's easier to just say the names of the movies rather than try to pronounce certain people's names. But I do think that Barbie has a shot of getting in if the love for that movie is strong enough on nomination day, which I think is very possible. I also feel like, John Williams for Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny could get in just because, he's a veteran. And I'm not as confident that these could be upsets, but I was very tempted to nominate Thomas Newman for Elemental or Michael
Yeah.
Giacchino for Society of the Snow. I think that both of them are viable possibilities as well. So that's where I stand right now, though.
Well, I thought about the Michael Giacchino thing, but then Batman didn't even get shortlisted last year, and that was my favorite score of last year, and it was a lot of people's. That
That was
was
a
like
great score.
that was shockwaves when that missed. The thing about Indiana Jones and why I dropped it is they didn't nominate Crystal Skull. So while John Williams seems like he's Teflon and he seems like they always give it to John Williams because he's John Williams, it's kind of weird for them to come back on the Indiana Jones train for this film, after they ignored the fourth one. So I'm hoping they don't because I have your four. I just don't have Zone of Interest. I'm going with Saltburn.
That's a very good choice.
I think Saltburn has been doing a little bit of surging, and Zone of Interest score. The film is a lot of sound design, from what I understand, and that score comes in and out, and it's a little bit like Tar. So I don't know how exciting it's getting people.
we hear what I would
Anyway,
say, and I think that and I'll say this, personal preference, I prefer the Saltburn score over the Zone of Interest score. It would really be if the love for that movie on nomination day is strong, then they could just be like, let's just throw it a bone and score as well. But it would be more so like a companion nomination, I think. That as of now, I will keep it in there, but Salt. There's a very good case for Saltburn, and I think. How do you feel about Elemental?
uh, like it could sneak in. I feel better about Thomas Newman getting a random nomination for Elemental than I do Indiana Jones for John Williams.
One hundred
Um,
percent agreed.
but also, I think The Boy and the Heron has a better shot than Elemental. So,
I would agree with
but
that as well.
the thing is, I'm not really ready to put two animated films in there. So I think if Elemental makes it, it means Spider-Man doesn't, and
Yeah.
that's what. And I feel better about Spider-Verse right now. So those are my thoughts anyway. Did you actually get to see Zone of Interest? Because it doesn't have audio description.
No, I
So,
didn't get to see Zone of Interest. I
well,
have
you talked about the score. And I was like, did he see Zone of Interest?
no, I just
Where did
listened
you
to the
find this audio
score.
description? So,
I wish so. What I've heard though is that there is someone that has done audio description for that movie. I don't know if that's just like a UK track or where it lands, but it does exist somewhere in the zeitgeist.
well, just as an aside, I have been in talks with the awards people at A24, and they're when we got to a certain point, they kind of started ghosting me, and I haven't actually gotten the answer and an actual like accessibility to Zone of Interest. Acknowledging the fact, because I know that they're not sending screeners out. They want people to go to the theaters to hear the sound design. It's really important to them. So they're trying not to do the digital downloads and everything. I'm like, but you guys didn't put audio description in theaters. I literally can't go watch it in theaters. So why don't you make the exception and send me the audio description track for the film so that I can actually consider your movie, because I'm a Spirit Award voter and it's nominated under Best Foreign Language Film. And it's a battle. We're working on it. We'll see whether or not it ever happens, but it's still under my consideration. I haven't voted yet. It'll be interesting. I'm waiting to see if I can actually get audio description for Zone of Interest. But anyway, when you said that, I was like, did he see Zone of Interest? I have to ask him. Anyway, back on track. I'm gonna go back to best sound, because I did
Okay,
just
let's
talk
do
about
it.
sound design. Since we basically had the same score, I have Saltburn, you have Zone of Interest. We're really close on score. Okay, so best sound, I've got Oppenheimer, Maestro, Napoleon, The Zone of Interest, and Ferrari. That's where I feel like that's my five. Again, Zone of Interest, I'm making such a huge point about the sound design for it, that I feel like it's going to get an obviously Oppenheimer. I would rather Oppenheimer didn't get this, because I legit had tinnitus for like a month after Oppenheimer. It was ringing in my ears for a solid month after Oppenheimer. I was wearing earplugs and shit, because it was like any sound would bother my ear. So it like way too much. Like my theater, just I don't know what the volume level was set to in my theater, but deaf was what it was set to, because I even with the audio description headphones on, I still had a problem afterwards. I was like, oh my god, I've never had this before in my life. I've seen thousands of movies in theaters, and nothing has ever done that to me before. Um, but yeah, that's the five. I think there are a few other ones. Let's see if you line up, or where are you at on this?
I'm exactly in alignment with you on this one because you had once again it was Oppenheimer, Maestro, Zone of Interest, and then what were the other two that you had again?
Napoleon and Ferrari.
Yeah, yes, yep. I'm in alignment with all of those. Oppenheimer, obviously, it's kind of self-explanatory. Maestro, the musical elements of that. Zone of Interest, from once again what I've heard. Like you were saying, the sound is a very big part of that movie. Ferrari, obviously, you have the car scenes, and then Napoleon, you have like the battle sequences and stuff, which the sound design on that is good.
They like war movies too in the
They
sound
do.
category, and I think Napoleon is the closest thing they really have right now.
I would
So
totally agree. And like almost every time there's like a war movie or a war type of movie, I guess maybe is the more appropriate thing to say. they tend to always get nominated in this category.
Yeah. So I think you're up for best song while we're down here talking about audible things, things that are heard.
All right, one moment. I was just there. Let me go back.
I'm hoping this is easy. Don't you
Okay.
throw me a curveball.
What Was I Made For? From Barbie. I'm Just Ken. Road to Freedom from Rustin. The Fire Inside from Flaming Hot, mainly because it's Diane Warren.
Yeah.
And It Never Went Away from American Symphony.
Exact same 5. Yep, that's exactly what I have. I would have been willing to bump Diane Warren if I felt strongly enough about any of the other songs, but I don't. They're really the other songs that came out this year that made any sort of sense. They didn't even shortlist Peaches. There's nothing here that's really going to be memorable in a couple of years. I haven't heard anybody. None of the songs from Wonka, which is bizarre.
Yeah.
They have the one song from Wish, which honestly, I work with kids. No one is singing that. That's the first Disney song where no one is running around. After Moana, after Frozen, those kids were just all over the place. They're like, let it go, let it go. No one is singing from Wish.
That is crazy, actually, because even in Encanto, that blew up, and obviously
Encanto, yeah, I had people singing Encanto. You know, I'm talking about Blue. No.
Exactly.
No one is singing Wish.
I mean, even Coco, people were singing that.
Coco, exactly. This is the first
Wish
time
is just dead in the water.
Disney movie dropped and nobody knows any of the music from Wish.
Don't get me wrong. I think the score or the soundtrack for Wish, I like it as a whole. I didn't like the movie, but the soundtrack is a handful of songs in it are good. I wouldn't say they're amazing, and I don't think they have the longevity to stay in the Disney canon. But I think they're good. They're fun enough. Have you listened to the Wish soundtrack?
I have not yet. No, not in its entirety. Just the one, the main one, the one that's nominated, the Iron DeVos one, which it's fine. It's fine. It's I kind of immediately was like, I kind of get why this is not. It didn't feel like I've been standing at the edge of the water. It just didn't feel like it was going to be an instant classic that kids everywhere were just going to sing all the time. So yeah, I think they're going to leave Disney out of this race this year, but which is weird.
It's
and
crazy.
The Color Purple songs, they've added songs to musicals before and not nominated them. Yeah. So just because it's a musical and it's a song doesn't necessarily mean, you know what, the musical was fine as is, which is why it won Tony Awards, and now it's a movie. So they didn't need to add music.
Have you had a chance to see that movie yet, The Color Purple?
So, fun fact, since it just dropped and you can get it digitally, I just got it digitally, and I'm literally trying to. I stopped my Color Purple double feature. I'm in the middle of the original Color Purple, and then I'm planning on watching the musical right after. So after this, I have I think I have 30 to 45 minutes left of the original Color Purple, which sadly does not have audio description on Max. God forbid they actually realize that people might want to watch the original when they have the remake, but it is on Max, and so I'm trying to get my way through that, and then I'm going to watch the musical, which also, interestingly, even though it dropped early, it dropped without audio description. But I definitely want to watch it before the Best Picture nominations come out. So I'm making a weird-ass exception for this damn movie because I want to see it. So
that's so weird because it had audio description in the theater too. So I mean, once again, as we know, with the world of AD, there's no rhyme or reason for why any track does or does not follow anything. Makes no sense.
There's also, I've seen them add it later. I've seen them. Spider Verse, for example, when it first appeared in the Apple Store, it didn't have audio description to it, and then they added it later. So I'm kind of hoping they slide it in later, and I just magically it appears on my thing. So
So
yeah, that's funny.
if they added in later, let's say you purchased it. This is something that I've never experienced, but if you purchase it on the like the iTunes store, let's say, and they don't have it initially, but they add it in, then does it just accompany? It just gets added in, on the version you bought as well.
I assume this will be the first time that I find that out. That is my assumption, is because it's pulling it off of the Apple Store, so they'd have to like recode the Apple Store so it doesn't read the. I'm not downloading it. I'm streaming it. I have like the authorization to stream The Color Purple. That's a weird thing. Physical media is much better, but
Yeah.
they don't put audio description on most physical media anymore anyway. So yeah, we're on a tangent. This
Tangent.
is a
Okay, getting
deep
back on track. It's your turn.
deep tangent. What was next? What's the next category?
I mean, we could do hair and makeup, costumes, production design.
Best production design. How about that?
Okay, let's do it.
All right. What you just did, so it's mine. Best production design. Obviously, I have Barbie, which is going to win. That would be insane if it didn't.
Agreed.
I'm also going with Saltburn. I know that's weird. I think Saltburn creates sort of a really interesting landscape, and it's got multiple locations. It does have the university, but once you actually get to Saltburn, there's the mansion with all the different rooms, the blue room. I love that. I love that there's just a room that's blue. What is that room? It's a blue room. What do you do there? I don't know. It's blue. Like it's just
Yeah.
there's a maze. There's just so many things for production designers. I think to get there. I think that's going to surprise. It's not everybody. It's not necessarily a front runner for this award, but yeah. Anyway, I do have Poor Things. I have The Zone of Interest, and I'm going with Oppenheimer. So that's my production design. I think Saltburn's probably the weird one.
So I have I have the four that you just, I mean, excluding Saltburn, I have Zone of Interest, I have Poor Things, I have Oppenheimer, and I have Barbie. Saltburn, I think it would be very deserving of getting in there. Right now, I have so the ones that I'm debating between for the fifth spot would be Saltburn, Maestro, and Killers. Right now, I'm going with Maestro, just because of how stylized the different periods look, and it spans like decades. And each decade does have a very clear distinction to it, and with the limited scope of vision that I have, I wasn't able to pick up a ton of detail, but I was able to pick up a few little details here and there that kind of was like, oh, this is good production design. So I would rather have Saltburn, but I am predicting Maestro for the fifth spot right now.
Yeah, those are absolutely valid. I would say if it's not Saltburn, it's probably Maestro or Killers. So yeah, I think this is a much more spread the love year than some people think. Some people I've seen basically people think it's just going to be like Oppenheimer, Killers, Poor Things, Barbie, with like 14 nominations apiece, and then fight. And I just think people liked more movies than that this year. So they can't be nominated in every category together. Every once in a while, one of them is going to miss, and it's life. So
Now, have you heard the arguments
every once
for?
in a while, I'll just throw another film in.
Have
I've
you heard
heard
the
the
arguments?
Asteroid City.
Yeah. Have you?
Yes.
What do you think of that?
I think they made the same arguments last year with French Dispatch. This is what I think. And French Dispatch got no nominations. Wes Anderson is. It would be nice if they nominated him more, but he seems to be getting less and less popular with Academy voters as time progresses. I think the last time he was really in the race was Grand Budapest Hotel, which was his, I believe, his only Best Picture nomination. So, yeah, I just, yeah, I don't think it's going to happen for him. I think Asteroid City just maybe. I mean, like, but then again, we were just here last year with French Dispatch, and it didn't happen. Everybody was like, "Oh, but French Dispatch because it's Wes Anderson, and his films are very visual, and there's a lot going." And I get it. I would. I mean, if it was me, I would probably totally vote for Wes Anderson every single time out the door. But it kind of seems like people are tired of it, and they're just
Yeah.
like, he ends up being like floated because it's like everybody recognizes we should be voting for Wes Anderson, but we just, I feel like the production design people are just like, oh, it's Wes Anderson doing Wes Anderson again. It's exhausting. You know, it's the same sort of look and vibe. Somebody who had full sight, he has a very unique style, and it's one of the things I bring up in my reviews all the time with audio description. Is like, I wish there was a way that we could translate some of these directors who have very distinct looks and styles to their films. Wes Anderson films really, like, you can put it on and not tell anybody. It could be a secret Wes Anderson film. And if I could see and I was in a theater and nobody told me it was Wes Anderson, but no opening credits to it, I could tell it was Wes Anderson. I'd be like, this is Wes Anderson. Like, I mean, he has the same cast. His characters are also dressed the same way. There's a certain way they're blocked when they stand and sort of address each other. He has the same writing style. All of his films follow the same mold. So what makes Asteroid City different than French Dispatch? So yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen. But I
I
mean,
totally agree. Like, I mean, could it happen? Sure, anything's possible, but that's like that narrative or that push doesn't seem, yeah, for the reasons you mentioned, doesn't seem strong enough based on, yeah, just based on past,
yeah.
track record too.
All right, you're up for makeup.
Woo, makeup. Can we do costumes actually? Is that okay?
Yeah, you can do costumes.
I guess it's because that was the next one on my page. So I have
Okay.
for costumes, I have Barbie, Poor Things, Napoleon, Killers, and Killers of the Flower Moon, and Maestro are my five. I do think that there is a. I mean, this is like, the category that if Wonka were to get in somewhere, maybe it could get in here. I'm not predicting that at all, but if we're talking about surprises, maybe that would be the one that would be able to pull through. But yeah, that's what I have right now.
I have the exact same five you have.
Nice.
The exact same five that you have. I know some people think Color Purple, yeah, but I think Color Purple is gonna come down to Fantasia Barrino and Daniel Brooks. So I left it out. But anyway.
All right. I guess not much
So
too much more to be said on that one.
yeah, I mean we agree on the same exact thing. So yeah. So makeup.
Makeup. Okay.
I've got Maestro, Poor Things, Oppenheimer, Society of the Snow, and Golda.
Um, I actually have the exact same five as you on that as well.
All right. Well, this is becoming easier and easier. Yeah. I think really the only possible is Killers here.
Yeah.
Maybe snubbing something. But yeah. That's about it. I don't. Last Voyage of the Demeter. A lot of people are like, "Oh, that's an interesting nomination." It's like, yeah, and so was Crimes of the Future when they shortlisted that last year. Did it get nominated? No, it did not. They're not really big on horror stuff for this stuff. I know way back in the day, American Werewolf changed the game. Um, since then, we've moved on to uh, which actor can we cake in the most makeup humanly possible, and we'll give it to that. So this is gonna
Yeah,
be
that's so true.
this is a walk for Maestro, from what I understand. This is Maestro getting this in a walk, but you know, I think editing for you.
All right. So for editing, I have Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Killers of the Flower Moon, The Zone of Interest, and The Holdovers. Um, I don't feel great about. I think that The Holdovers is the potential that it's in the fifth spot for me there. I think that it could be upset potentially by if the love for past lives is strong enough. I think it could be upset by past lives. I also think that from what I've been reading, Ferrari might stand a chance, but that is, I'm not putting my money on that either. But I guess those are the two right now that I feel like could come into the mix. Yeah, that's what I got right now.
All right. I think I'm a little bit different, but I can't remember on what. So you tell me what it's different on, because I've totally forgotten your five, but I know I don't have one of them. I think you had Zone of Interest, and I don't have that. So uh, I have Oppenheimer, Anatomy of a Fall, Killers of the Flower Moon, The Holdovers, and Poor Things. I think I have Anatomy and you have Zone. Is
And
that
yeah,
right?
exactly. So I do think that anatomy also, like, once again, zone of interest and holdovers. I think that something else could come in and overtake either one of those. And I do think that anatomy does have a chance of sneaking in there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think a film like Zone of Interest is going to get 10 nominations. So I'm trying to temper my expectations overall, and not put everything everywhere, all at once.
Huh, like
Um
that.
I got it in there.
Were you just waiting for a moment to get that in there? That's the question. You're like, I got to
Oh,
throw this in somewhere.
maybe I'm just that
I love it.
brilliant. So yeah, we have 4 out of 5. We matched 4 out of 5, and then we just have we have a different foreign language title in the place. It's interesting that you say past lives, because I would say Barbie. If I had to pick another spoiler other than Zone of Interest, I would say Barbie. Um, just because of the whole, like, it could end up everything sort of flows Barbie's way. um, I I don't know who it would knock out, because I feel actually pretty good about Holdovers. So I don't know. I don't know which one it would take out. I don't think they're going to knock out the fact that I know Thelma Schoonmaker, or whatever her name is, edits
Yeah,
Martin
yeah.
Scorsese's movies. I don't even pay that much attention, and I've heard her name before like a billion times. So
Same.
I can't imagine she doesn't get nominated. So yeah, I feel like this is pretty safe. Anyway, um,
So now we're on to cinematography, I believe, with you leading out.
I do believe that's correct. Okay, so best cinematography. I do have Oppenheimer, obviously, Maestro, Killers of the Flower Moon, The Zone of Interest, and I'm sticking with Saltburn for cinematography.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah. I know people are. There's a last minute push for El Conde, the vampire Pinochet movie. You know what? If it happens, it happens. But I don't know.
So just to confirm, you said Oppenheimer, Killers, Maestro, Zone of Interest, and Poor Things?
No.
Not Poor Things?
I have
Oh,
Saltburn instead
Saltburn.
of Poor Things.
Saltburn. Okay. So the only difference I have Killers, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Killers, Zone of Interest, and then I have
Poor
Poor
Things,
Things in
obviously.
there.
Yeah, instead of Saltburn. That's fine. Yeah, I
And
just took a swing. So
I love that. I mean, I love this. I mean, once again, from like a limited vision standpoint, Saltburn's color palette is for as dark of a story as it is, like the lavish like world that's created with the in the mansion and otherwise, like it has a very like vibrant color palette, and so I was able to catch a little more visual detail because of the color, but also because of the way that like the cinematography like moved along too.
yeah, it has a
So
lot going for it. A lot of indoors, exteriors, wide shots, close-up shots. Just everything is just sort of weird and interesting. And I think Saltburn has oddly been peaking. There have been a
yeah,
lot of people talking about Saltburn online, more and more so. And the voting window for Oscars was just closed like a couple days ago. So um, it's I think it might have peaked at the right time. Anyway, those are my picks for cinematography, which means we're pretty close. We just have one that's different.
all
And
right,
I think
so
that leaves you with a screenplay category.
okay, let's
Original?
see. Sure.
Okay.
Hang tight for just a moment. It's so funny because, like, after, like, so many movies I think are gonna get multiple nominations, all the movies, like, blend together in my mind. Like, it's like, "Okay, Oppenheimer's in this category, it's like they all just kind of, like, flow together as one.
Yeah.
Okay, one moment.
I almost
Original
wish.
screen
Yeah, I almost wish that the voters could still just write in Barbie just to like screw over whoever decided it's adapted, because this is the only place it's been pushed into adapted. Even at the BAFTAs, it got an original screenplay nomination. For the Writers Guild, it's original screenplay. Like everywhere else, it's original screenplay, but the Oscars. Like they really need to like reconsider life and to just go ponder life. Anyway. What are your
Yeah.
nominations for original screenplay?
Okay, so I have, The Holdovers, Past Lives, Anatomy of a Fall, um, Maestro, and then Saltburn. I do think that there is a world where May December could because May December is original, right?
Yeah, May December's original.
Yeah, I do think that there's a world where May December could sneak in there, but once again, the passion for that movie doesn't seem as strong. Even though, I mean, I do think the screenplay is very good, and I think that there's been more agreement, consensus about the screenplay being, a strength of it as a whole. Although I have heard criticisms of the screenplay as well. So anyway, yeah. Once again, my five are Holdovers, Past Lives, um, Anatomy of a Fall, Maestro, and Saltburn.
It is interesting, sir, that you mentioned that because I do have May December. I have,
I love that. I would
I
be
have
happy if
swapped Netflix movies. So I do not have Maestro and I do have May December here. I have dropped Bradley Cooper's Maestro from this list and I have added May December.
I would be happy. Yeah, I would be happy if that was how it went down. Like, I would be, because I do like. I think that May December does have a better script than Maestro, and now that I'm processing this out loud, I think I'm also going to switch out Maestro for May December as well, because it does seem like a very. If you're going to award this movie anywhere, May December, I think the screenplay category is its most likely opportunity to give it an award, even though we'll get to the best supporting actor category and maybe there's a chance there still. But
I don't know
I
if
do.
you know this, but Bradley Cooper is up for 4 Oscar nominations, basically, because he could get nominated for screenplay, actor, director, and producer
Picture
of Maestro.
exactly.
That's a lot. I'm gonna assume something doesn't happen, and they can't. That's a lot of nominations to add to his total of nominations. So I don't know, but I dropped Maestro.
And
It's,
really, if you think about it, the strength of Maestro, there's the directing, there's the acting, there's the style, there's a lot of things that contribute to Maestro that people pay more attention to. When you think about May December, at least what I think about more is the screenplay. Like the screenplay
yeah,
and the performances, but not so much all the other elements, that like stick out as they do in Maestro. So yeah, okay. I'm changing mine. I'm dropping Maestro as well. And then what else do you have for your five in this
oh,
category?
that we were exactly the same. I just swapped May December for
Okay,
Maestro.
awesome. And you
Yeah,
convinced me once
otherwise,
again.
yeah, I agreed. All right, so uh, now it's my turn to do adapted. So for adapted screenplay, I have American Fiction, so Court Jefferson can get his nomination, just like Celine Song will get hers for Past Lives. Don't worry, they'll both get to be called Oscar nominee after this
Exactly.
ceremony. It's gonna happen. I feel it in my bones. Barbie, yes, even though it moved, it just ended up knocking something else out, sadly. But yes, they're still going to nominate Greta and Noah for Barbie. I do have Poor Things. He's gotten far too much recognition for Poor Things for me to not pick it here. Um, I do have Oppenheimer. And for the last spot, I didn't pick Killers. I snubbed it just like the BAFTAs. I think when you're talking about best adaptation and they kind of went in a completely different direction, maybe that's not a direction everybody agreed with. Maybe that is what's hurting it. Maybe that's why it didn't get it at the BAFTAs. There was a different thing that got at the BAFTAs, and I'm going with All of Us Strangers. Andrew Haig's All of Us Strangers. He took what essentially was a horror ghost story and adapted it into one of the most emotional experiences of the year. And I think he's going to get recognized for his screenplay for All of Us Strangers. So, what's I would also love to see Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and anything. But I don't think that's going to happen here. What do you have? Lee, did you die?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what happened, but um yeah, I don't know what happened. That was weird. But I'm back now.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, sorry about that.
Were
The
you
joys
able
of
to?
technology.
Did you hear me do the category, or do you need me to run it
I,
down again?
I did hear you do the category, and what I was saying was I'm actually in alignment with you. I have all five of those. I recently switched over to All of Us Strangers, as well.
So we're both snubbing Killers.
We both
Okay.
are snubbing Killers because I had Killers in for a long time until recently, and the more I thought about it, Um, and thought about if they want to spread the wealth out a little bit like they've been doing, like this is, probably the only place that All of Us Strangers could be recognized as well. I mean,
Yeah, and I think I think too it's really important to note that the Oscars did this to themselves by moving Barbie out of original and into adapted, because I think Killers would be fine if it didn't have the extra added Barbie here.
totally.
That's what knocked it out. I don't think All of Us Strangers knocked it out. I think Barbie knocked it out.
I
So
I completely agree with that.
yeah, the one that I think everybody else has is Zone of Interest. I don't know what it's adapted from, so I don't really know how impressive that is. I think people are just picking Zone of Interest because they like Zone of Interest. Um, but maybe it'll get in. I'll acknowledge that. I'll just mention it casually. But I just don't think, again, I don't think Zone of Interest is getting 10 nominations this year. Anybody who's ever seen a Jonathan Glazer film, he doesn't make the world's most accessible films. He will get recognized. Zone of Interest will get nominations, but it's not gonna. It's not All Quiet on the Western Front. So
And
anyway,
I would
yeah,
need to see Zone of Interest, like, I think before I were to make, to, like, see the strength of the screenplay, not saying that it's not strong, but I just have nothing to go off of.
yeah.
So, I need a little more intel.
Yeah. All right. Now we're into acting categories, and I'm gonna kick you off with supporting actor.
Okay.
So
Supporting actor, I have Robert Downey Jr., Ryan Gosling, um, Mark Ruffalo, William Dafoe, and I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say Charles Melton, and in place of De Niro.
yeah, I have concerns. This race has me all over the place, to the point
One
where I
hundred
will be
percent.
totally honest. And Alex made us promise that we would talk about the fact that Alex is going Glenn Howerton Blackberry. He's keeping that in his predictions, no matter what. And honestly, right now in Gold Derby, Glenn Howerton is still there. The two that I have that I feel really sure about are Robert Downey Jr. and Ryan Gosling. I need to emotionally convince myself that Glenn Howerton is not going to get nominated before Monday. I'm not going to predict him. I'm pretty sure I'm going to put De Niro there. Um, and I'm deeply concerned by the Poor Things snub by BAFTA. Now, this is a film that they considered to be a British film. This is a film that, of the British films that they had that could have crossed over into the top five, it is the only one that did. They could have crossed over All of Us Strangers. They could have crossed over Zone of Interest. But the only one that was strong enough to be in both the Best Picture and the Best British Film was Poor Things. I still don't know how it's a British film. Yorgos is a Greek director, and this cast is not British, but somehow this is a British film. No one has explained that to me, but apparently it's a British film. Anyway, that means the snub for Mark Ruffalo and Willem Dafoe is hard. It's a hard snub, and to predict that they'll both get in is really tough. And I'm in a predicament where I think we're in a place right now where I think Dominic Sessa and the holdovers are doing enough to surge. And I'm trying to figure out if it's Charles Melton or Dominic Sessa. And right now I may end up leaving it that way and leaving Charles Melton and Dominic Sessa and dropping both of the Poor Things boys, just because I can't figure out which one of these young guys is going to get nominated, and just take the hit and be like, I know I'm going to miss one. I don't think they're both getting nominated, but I don't want to get the one wrong that actually is getting nominated. one of them, I don't think they're both getting snubbed. Um, I think it would be weird for both of the young nominees to get in, but I also don't think both Poor Things boys are getting in. So I'm gonna go with I will end up finding the strength within me to remove Glenn Howerton. So I'm gonna say that I'm predicting Robert De Niro, but technically, if you looked at me on Golden Derby, you would find out that it still says Glenn Howerton. IFC is not getting an Oscar nomination. They're not strong enough campaigners. Um, yes. So Ryan, Robert, and I have Charles Milton and Dominic Sessa. So
If you bring up a lot of really good points, also if that was the lineup, I would be I would be happy with that. I mean, so just as kind of like for you and Alex, I know that like Glenn Howerton is kind of like the heart pick or the passion pick. And he did do a fantastic job, and I would be very happy if he made it in. Dominic Sessa, I've been championing him the whole way through, and so probably because of my love of the holdovers, and he did do a very good job in that. I would be thrilled if he got in. So he's kind of like my heart pick, but in my head, I'm like, this could happen, but I need to be prepared for it not happening too.
yeah, the other thing about me dropping Charles Melton is I got him on Gold Derby when he had great odds, and I've had him in my list, and it's like those are really good odds. If he gets nominated, I'm gonna get a lot of points. So that's kind of the thing. Is I'm like, oh my god, I I predicted Jeffrey Wright long before his shit ever hit. I have him at 100 to 1 odds in Best Actor. Like I'm not
Nice.
moving him. I am not moving him for the life of me. So yeah, that's the good thing about Gold Derby. Anyway, so yeah, I that's where I'm at. So anyway, you started supporting actor, right? So I have to start supporting actress.
Exactly. It's your turn now.
All right, so supporting actress, I don't know. This is a category that's gotten really weird really fast. And I'm going with the obvious Divine Joy Randolph, which definitely is happening. Danielle Brooks, I feel like is solid, and then it just becomes things. It becomes things we talk about, and right now I'm in the same place where I have to give myself the physical strength to remove Rachel McAdams from this list. Those are my two. Like Rachel McAdams and Glenn Howerton would make me so happy. But I'm gonna do it. I will find the physical strength to remove Rachel McAdams, and I think they're gonna pick these bullshit little performances from America Ferrera and Emily Blunt. I'm sorry, but they're bullshit. They're tiny, and their speeches. Basically, they're getting nominated for speeches. But America Ferrera, I've noticed that the Barbie campaign has done everything to try to give her a profile that they possibly can to get her the 5th spot. And she's never been nominated. They love Barbie. I think she's going to get a nomination. And I really can't believe I'm saying that. This is definitely very much me not saying, like, this is me removing heart from it all and just saying these are the people that I truly think people who vote for this category are going to vote for these films. And I'm going with Rosamund Pike, Emily Blunt, and America Ferrera, along with Danielle and Divine. I think Rosamund Pike gets in for Saltburn. So I'm leaving on Jodie Foster. I think Naya gets snubbed. I don't think Penelope Cruz is getting in for Ferrari.
Julianne Moore for May December.
Yeah, I left Julianne Moore out for May December. I think that package is Charles Melton and screenplay. So.
Okay, so I have the 4 that you do in terms of Danielle Brooks, Divine Joy Randolph, Emily Blunt, and America Ferrera. As much as the last 2, like you said, those would not be my personal choices, but I do feel like they've they're gonna get in. And then for my fifth place, instead of Rosalind Pike, which I would be happy with, I have Jodie Foster, because once again, I think it is possible that Nyad gets completely snubbed, but everyone that talks about the performances in Nyad tend to champion Jodie Foster, over Annette Bening performance wise. And there's been, I don't know, like, there's been small surges, like very small surges, for Nyad's performers lately, but they're not huge. But it might be enough for Jodie Foster to pull through. So that's what I'm going
It
off of.
might. And I think the
So,
important thing to remember also is in these things, I had to look at what SAG did, and then I had to make changes to that. So I have to drop people that SAG picked, because
mm,
SAG does not go 20 for 20. That's the thing about these guilds, is that they don't go perfect for perfect. Now we don't know what the Writers Guild has picked. That hasn't been announced yet. Otherwise, that would affect my nominations. But especially for SAG, last year they went 12 out of 20. So recently, the highest that they've gone is 15. So you have to make a couple changes. You have to look at the SAG and go, nope, nope, and no. You know what I mean? Like, you have to figure out which ones don't translate, because eventually some of them will. I think Jodie Foster might be one of the ones that doesn't translate. She was here a couple years ago with the possibility for the Mauritania, and they didn't nominate her.
mhm,
So,
mhm.
of
Total.
course, the same thing can be said about Emily Blunt, which is the whole reason why she's being nominated, is because it's taken her so long to get to a point where she might actually get nominated. Jodie Foster's won an Oscar, so it's less important to get her in the category.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey,
No, I mean, that's
yeah,
all very good, very true stuff right there.
yeah. Uh, are you best actor now?
I am best actor, so obviously we have Killian Murphy, Paul Giamatti, Bradley Cooper, Jeffrey Wright. And then the fifth spot is where it gets interesting. I think it is between Coleman Domingo, Leonardo DiCaprio, and I'm going to go out on a limb here. And yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm willing to be wrong about this, but I'm going to say Andrew Scott for All of Us Strangers. I think once again, if this movie, All of Us Strangers, is not getting, is not going to be recognized in very many categories. And I know it didn't do, I mean, it didn't kill out the BAFTAs, but I think, having some attention from the BAFTAs helped its case. And yeah, I don't know. I just have a feeling about it, or I'm willing to take a risk on this one. So I,
I have the same right now. I'm not. I'm questioning the Andrew Scott thing, because the BAFTA list was released, and it's very weird because they do the jury thing, and it's not quite as obvious as you may think it is. And it was so weird that they recognized both Paul Mescal and Claire Foy, but not Andrew Scott.
yeah,
Everybody expected that nomination to hit, and I think of the five, like I said, I tried to pick one of the five that SAG nominated, and SAG went with Killian, Bradley, Paul, Jeffrey, and Coleman, and they snubbed DiCaprio. And of course, Andrew Scott, Barry Keoghan, Teo Yu, and anybody else you might want to put in there. But I think Coleman is the weak link. I don't see that. I don't see what Rustin is putting out there except song. I mean, granted, Cynthia Erivo did get an acting nomination and song for Harriet. That was the entire package for Harriet. So it's not impossible for Coleman to get in. Um, but I'm leaving Andrew Scott. I just there's something about it that has a Paul Mescal and After Sun feel to it that I just can't
Exactly.
shake. There's
Exactly.
something
Like,
about that. He's never been nominated. If this had been Barry Keoghan, and this was his first nomination, maybe he didn't get nominated last year for Banshees. After that surprise nomination he got at BAFTA, he also got a Golden Globe nomination. Part of me wants to swap Keoghan for Scott and say that maybe Barry Keoghan and Saltburn is going to end up overperforming way more than anybody thinks it is. And maybe All of Us Strangers is dead, and I just need to learn to accept that. So I'll acknowledge that between now and Tuesday morning, the one thing I'm thinking about doing is swapping Scott for Keoghan, but I'm not putting in DiCaprio. He is, everyone knows who he is. Everyone has seen his film. Everyone is choosing to not recognize him. It is a conscious choice. It is not subconscious. He is the one person in Killers that people are just, there's no narrative. That's the thing, is a lot of these awards is always about the narrative, and there's no narrative for DiCaprio here. He already has an Oscar. He has oodles of nominations. Even Barry Keoghan has already been nominated. Andrew Scott has never been. So there you go.
yeah, I'm in alignment with all of that as well. As far as like, yeah, I have nothing more to add to that other than I fully agree with all of your logic. It all makes complete sense to me.
Yep. I also think Paul Giamatti is going to win. And I think everybody who keeps saying Cillian Murphy is going to be very sad. So I'll throw that in.
I agree with that too. Like, I think that the tides have turned a little bit, and I do think that it's Giamatti's to lose right now.
All right.
Okay, so we're up to you for best
So
director. I know we
I'm
talked
on
about.
actress.
Oh,
I have to do
for,
actress.
of course. Okay.
Okay, so actress. Yeah, Lily Gladstone is going to get an Oscar nomination. BAFTAs be damned.
Exactly.
Watching reaction videos to Lily Gladstone not getting a nomination is one of the most entertaining things that's happened in the last couple days. But yeah, so Lily Gladstone she's fine. I have Emma Stone for Poor Things. I have Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall. I think she has to get nominated for one of the two films, and I think it's going to be the one where she's in the whole thing. Um, I I decided to keep Margot Robbie for Barbie. I think all three of the Barbie people are getting nominated. I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. And then for the fifth spot, I'm snubbing Carey Mulligan, and I'm putting in Fantasia Barrino for The Color Purple. I'm making a bold choice. This is, anybody else can absolutely do what they want. Um, Carey Mulligan has been snubbed before. Yes, Oscars do like her. They don't love her. She doesn't have an oodles of nominations. She was in the mix last year for She Said, didn't get nominated. And Maestro feels more and more like it's becoming a Bradley Cooper campaign than it is a Carey Mulligan campaign, even though she's really great in the film. And I think Fantasia may end up surprising and stealing that spot. So the fact that she actually managed a BAFTA nomination is amazing. That was actually the final, because I did not think she was going to get a BAFTA nomination, and she did. And
Same.
so I was like, I don't know what to do with this except to assume that everyone else is catching on to Fantasia. And I thought she was so far from a BAFTA nomination, like she could have slept in. I would have told her as her agent, I'd be like, it's not happening for you. I'm sorry. And then it did. So, what are your thoughts?
So I have the first four that you have. The only difference I have is I'm keeping Carey Mulligan in for Maestro.
Totally valid.
I think that, and I could see it going any which way. I could see Fantasia getting in. The BAFTA, her getting a BAFTA, I think does have could, carry some weight for sure. I don't dismiss that. It's just with people in LA that I talk to about Maestro, even if they don't love the movie, the one thing, and these are people like in various guilds and everything, the one thing that they'll say is Carrie Mulligan was great. And while campaigning wise, it definitely looks kind of like the Bradley Cooper show from people that I've been more connected to in the industry. They all have highlighted Carrie Mulligan as being the one like good thing about the movie, even if the movie's not for them. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, not everyone that I talk to is, part of, probably very few people I know are part of the Academy, if any at all. But if that represents a quotient of people in the bigger picture that feel that way, then that could be enough to at least carry her through to a nomination.
Yeah, I feel like that is totally valid. And I think this is a really tight race. I
Absolutely.
was really surprised. I was willing to go a different way until the BAFTAs. I probably wouldn't have had before the BAFTAs. I would have probably kept Carrion, and I would have had Greta Lee, and then I would have dropped Margot and Fantasia. But those two performances being recognized by snobby British people really made me realize the strength and possibility in those performances. And um, I think they're wrong about Lily Gladstone, so I had to figure out what else they were going to drop. And I did like if Emma Stone didn't get recognized for Poor Things, I would have to pull it out of picture because she is Poor Things. So I can't do that. And same thing, I feel like Sandra Fuller is Anatomy of a Fall. I feel like if she doesn't get nominated for actress, it's not getting nominated in picture. So
Yeah, yeah.
you know, yeah. So that's actress, and we're pretty close. So you've got uh,
Director,
director.
correct?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. So I know that we had talked about this in, great detail on our last live stream, but
yeah,
um, I don't think a whole lot's changed for me. I guess where I stand right now is I have Christopher Nolan, Greta Gerwig, Yorgos Lanthimos. Um, at this point, I do have Alexander Payne. And then the fifth spot, um, this is tough now because I am going to give it to I am going to give it to Scorsese, which makes me nervous because that is like the once again the DGA 5, right?
yep,
Nolan, Scorsese, Gerwig, Payne. Um, let's see, yeah, Nolan. Well, I'm missing one. No, oh, and Yorgos Lanthimos. That was the DGA 5, right?
yep.
As much as I've been toying around with other ideas, like I just don't know who to kick out. I guess the person that I guess is most vulnerable would be Scorsese or Payne, and I think that Jonathan Glazer or Justine Treat have potential to overthrow, Payne or Scorsese. But I'm keeping the 5 for now, and I just don't know what else to do. It's been something I've been like toying around with, and I still landed back there. So
Yeah, I think the BAFTA list was really interesting, and the BAFTA list validated me on, if you remember, what my wild card last week was, and then the BAFTAs did it.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
you're right. You're
I'm
right.
gonna I'm gonna stick with it because I called it before it happened. So I am leaving Bradley Cooper in this race. I think I like I said, I think a lot of people have been talking about Bradley Cooper. Martin Scorsese's campaign for Bradley Cooper, which may end up biting him in the ass. I dropped Martin. I have Alexander Payne. The funny thing is, until I didn't even know he was droppable until BAFTAs. I didn't know that that was a possibility or a thing, and then the BAFTAs did it, and I was like, "Whoa, we can actually not nominate Martin. I'll explore this." So then I dropped Martin, and the reason for that was I was willing to drop Payne. But the thing about Payne is that's his first BAFTA nomination. They've
Right.
never rewarded him before with a BAFTA nomination. And I'm like, and then they also had Dominic Sessa. And I'm like, maybe the holdovers just is that strong. So
It did have a
yeah.
strong showing at BAFTA for sure. Like stronger than I
And
would have thought it.
and with I still consider Yorgos to be a qualifying candidate for the international spot. I do. He's a Greek director. He should be just as eligible as Justin Triet. He should be more eligible than Jonathan Glazer. Jonathan Glazer should not be fulfilling an international requirement. I'm sorry, he and Christopher Nolan are from the same country. Anyway, it's just bizarre. So yeah, that's what I got. I kept basically the same thing. I just swapped Scorsese for Payne. So I have Greta still, I have Bradley, I have Yorgos, and I have Nolan.
The one
So
thing I will say that has changed for me a little bit, and it's very much supporting your point, is I do think the most vulnerable now is Scorsese. I think that he's the one that can easily be kicked out by, yeah, well, like you said, by Cooper, by, Justine Triet, by Jonathan Glazer. Like, I think that if anyone was going to go out of the DGA 5, he would be the first to go now, is how I feel.
we act like he is Spielberg and that he is, Oscar Jesus, but we forget that it took him till The Departed to win an Oscar. So
Totally.
yeah, and they were pretty much the silence was kind of fell silent for them. So they don't. Scorsese might end up missing, and that would be. It feels weird to say that, but I'm predicting it. So I think Best Picture. You did director, so I'll start off with the Best Picture. So here are my thoughts on picture. So the PGA 10 was what I would have picked, and then the PGA 10 picked it. So I had to analyze. I had to sit down and think. And the thing is, with Best Picture, it's ranked choice voting. And the Oscars, PGA has never gone 10 for 10. And they also, the fact it's so weird that they went for the international nominees this year because they didn't go last year for All Quiet on the Western Front. So that threw me. I was really expecting last year they had The Whale and Black Panther, I think, were the two that ended up not going on to Best Picture. So I basically went through their PGA list and I asked myself the question of, okay, so what are the films that I'm hearing are favorite film of the year, best picture of the year, and I picked those. And the one that's at the bottom, the one that has the least amount of people saying it's my favorite, not just like it's on the list or yeah, it's my number 5, it's my number 6, it's my number 3, it's my number, but the one that I don't think is getting a lot of number 1 votes is Maestro. So I have dropped Maestro from the list. I have the rest of the PGA 9. I'm going with Zone of Interest and Anatomy of a Fall. And I'm dropping Maestro, which is going to be shocking. I know. It feels like it was always a lock. But when I ask myself, I think there are people who absolutely adore Past Lives. And even though I'm only predicting Past Lives for picture and screenplay, that's the exact same package that Women Talking had last year. So it doesn't bother me that much. And of the 9 PGA remaining films, it's the one that I currently have with the least amount of nominations. Everything else has plenty of nominations to support it. So for my 10th spot right now, I have All the Strangers. I'm toying with Saltburn. It's either going to be All of Us Strangers or Saltburn by Tuesday. I may leave it as All of Us Strangers. I think there are people who like that, who it's emotionally affected them, and I think it's going to rank high on a lot of lists. But also, Saltburn has had a lot of love. The problem with Saltburn is that it's so divisive that it's either going to have number one votes or just not appear at all. Whereas I think All of Us Strangers will have number one votes, but also appear on some lists. So I think Maestro may end up dropping off the list. What are your
That
thoughts on
is,
Best Picture?
that's a totally like valid logic, and I like the way that you think about this. As of right now, and granted, by Tuesday it could change. I am keeping the PGA 10. I think that there's a possibility that this year could be the first year to break the PGA never going 10 for 10. But I also think about, once again, like, aside from these 10 movies, what are the other threats? What, like you said, what have other people been talking about?
Yeah.
And what are, where are other movies in this? And the only movies, once again, that I could think of would be Saltburn or All of Us Strangers. And I would be more likely to put in Saltburn and to drop, yeah, I think I probably would drop Maestro, because I was gonna say it would be either Maestro or Zone of Interest, but I've seen Zone of Interest on more of people's top 10 lists than I have Maestro.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I think there's one other film, and I do have to acknowledge Color Purple. But the problem with Color Purple is I think it's in the same boat as Maestro. I think it's a film that ends up on lists without topping. So I don't think it necessarily, now it could end up getting just enough points above Maestro. So I don't want to say that Color Purple can't edge that 10th spot. Um, because I think it is sort of the same type of film as Maestro. But I think the ones that are getting number one votes are All of Us Strangers and Saltburn. I don't know what's happening with Origin. I just know Neon, Francis Fisher, and Angelina Jolie, and a couple of other big names are pushing the shit out of Origin only during Oscar consideration period. This film has been dead. It says it's not getting nominated anywhere else. BAFTAs didn't nominate it for shit. And all of a sudden, they're trying to get it nominations. If Origin ends up being the 10th place spot, then they've done an amazing job campaigning that film in 5 days. Um, so, but yeah, that's it. I did want to acknowledge the fact that I think Color Purple could get it.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I completely agree with that. Actually, I think that I would probably even put Color Purple above. I say this loosely, but I would actually probably even put Color Purple above All of Us Strangers. I'd say Saltburn, Color Purple, and All of Us Strangers in that order to get into one of the PGA 10 spots.
Yeah.
But once again, like I said, for now,
You're going with the PGA 10. I'm going with the
I'm
PGA 9.
I'm going with the
So
PGA 10 and thinking that this could be the year that the record, or the PGA 10, like, never. I mean, them not getting it perfect. Maybe this is the year that that changes.
yep. Oscar voters are nothing if not out of left field. So I feel like anything could happen on Oscar morning. I still remember some of those nominations when you actually hear them, and then when you realize what got snubbed, I'm still mad about Daniel Detweiler for Till. I'm still
Totally.
just like still angry about it. But yeah, we could. Who knows? Who knows what'll happen? But we'll find out on Oscar morning if our predictions are right and where we land. So we were pretty close on predictions.
Yeah, we were,
So
which is, it's always fun to like talk about them. And I hope, I do hope that there's something spicy, even if it's just in one category, just something to mix it up, like a to Leslie sort of thing, or, I don't know, just something that makes it less predictable.
yeah, but I don't know how to make it less predictable other than Andrea Riseborough getting nominated for Leslie. So
Exactly.
um,
I don't know where that would come from, and I don't want it. I guess I don't want it just to like
Glenn
have it. I
Howerton,
guess, but
Glenn
just
Howerton for Blackberry. If
there
they
we
want to
go.
go
There we go.
nuts, Glenn Howerton for Blackberry. I don't think IFC has ever been nominated for an Oscar, so that would be shocking in and of itself. That could be the shocking, and it would make so many people happy. There wouldn't even be people complaining online about it. You could actually probably snub Robert Downey Jr. for Glenn Howerton, and I think get away with it. I think people would be they would be like, "Oh, damn it!"
Totally agreed.
It would be like, be careful what you wish for type of thing, but at least Glenn Howerton got it. Um, yeah, it's the one wild card nomination that I think everybody would be happy to see, but who knows? Um, Maybe Ferrari sweeps. I don't know. Michael Mann, best director, Ferrari. I have no
Ooh,
idea.
okay. Here would be if Ferrari got into Best Picture, that would throw me for a loop.
I mean, there's so many things that would throw me for a loop. Boys in the Boat getting an Oscar nomination literally anywhere would throw me for a loop. So, because again, it feels like Origin, where it just has been ignored all season, and then it just like came in at the end. And so, yeah, that would be another one that would just like surprise, we're here. Like, oh,
Yeah,
there are no precursors
exactly.
to predict you. Damn it. Because that's what happened with Leslie. It didn't have any precursors, and it just surprised. So, but yeah. Anyway,
You know
it's
what's
good talking. Yeah. What? Yeah.
One last thing I was gonna say about Boys in the Boat. What's interesting about that movie, had it come out like 20, 25, 30 years ago, it totally would have been the kind of film that would have been nominated. The conventional, inspirational, like underdog sports drama, with some good cinematography, good score and everything. But, it is very conventional, it's very safe, and it's very traditional. And the Academy shifted in a lot of ways. But, 30 years ago, there could have been a pathway for it, I think.
Yeah. Well, my device is low on battery, and so we have to end the live stream because it's in a position where I cannot plug it in, and but this has been a long hour and a half full coverage of all of the Oscar categories, and we'll see if we're right after Oscar morning. Um, and I want to give a big shout out to Lee and Alex at the Dark Room for joining me on award season journey. And we'll absolutely come back when we actually have nominees. I'm going to have them both. I'm going to have Alex on here whether he likes it or not. And I'm going to get you guys both on record for who you think is actually winning. And yeah, so we'll do at least I'll do a recap with each of you on who's winning and make sure we get those on record. And Oscar season. So make sure you subscribe to the Dark Room podcast. Thanks to Lee for being here. And yeah, I hope you make your predictions and get them in. Any last words, Lee?
No. I mean, I'll be excited for Tuesday, and this has been really fun. So thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you for being here. And Oscars on Tuesday morning. Go with God. May the
Have a
odds
good
be
day,
ever in your
everyone.
favor. May the force be with you. Whatever it is you need to hear. So see you on the other side.
See you on the other side.